Hello, welcome to a fresh new episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. As you all can see, I'm sure, um, not at my normal desk inside my house down in Richmond. For the next week, I went to my girlfriend's mom's house, who has a beach house not even a block away in Kerala. So that's the Outer Banks, for those that do not know. So that I will, for next week, most of my episodes will be from this exact spot. Friday, if I record, I'll either be back home or also we haven't really decided when we're leaving it. But for today's episode, going to be a little bit different. We're going to get into some free agency stuff. John Klingberg signed today. I'll give my thoughts on that. I'll give my thoughts on JFresh's list where the fans vote, where Jake Guentzel ranked in the top 10 left wingers, where Bryan ranked in the top 10 right wingers. Give my thoughts and analysis on that. See if the fans got that right after what we saw with Chris Letang the other day. And I'll also circle around a little bit to Evan Rodrigues, as he has still not signed yet. But, could the Penguins circle back at some point, even though they're over the cap? I'm going to get to that on this episode as well. So that's all coming up right after this drop.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at @LO_Penguins. Of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. This is the final episode of the month of July, another record-setting month for this show. Just past 600 subscribers on the YouTube page. Thank you all so much for subbing to that. As my goal right now is to get to 1K, and then obviously as high as I can go. But that is my short and long, well, I guess a short-term goal, but also a little bit of a long-term goal, since 400 subs. It's maybe going to take a little while, but I can't thank everyone enough that's subscribed to that channel, and I can't thank everyone enough that listens to the show on Apple and Spotify and all that stuff. I'm just so amazed at how the show has continued to grow over this month. So let's get right into the meat of this episode. So we did finally see one of the top free agents come off the market today, and that was John Klingberg to the Anaheim Ducks, 1 year, $7 million. Basically, that's the Taylor Hall deal. I mean, he's going to a team. They're trying to be better next year, but I think also at the same time, they know if they're not that good by the deadline, they can just sell him off for picks and prospects. But Buffalo, again, they literally did that with Taylor Hall, trade him to Boston, and then Hall, he got he got basically paid by the Boston Bruins. So I think that's probably what Klingberg is going to be going here for. Apparently, Elliot Friedman and Jeff Murek released a nice 32 Thoughts podcast episode today, and they were saying that he was looking at the Darnell Nurse contract, the Seth Jones contract, and it's like, wow, no wonder why he fired his agent. I just don't think his former agent knew the market very well, because it's just the flat cap is really affecting everything right now. Again, you didn't really see it last summer because it's a expansion team that came in, which means a lot more money and all that stuff. But right now, it's just it's coming to a standstill. Just because teams they're hesitant to give out a lot of money. But I like that deal for Klingberg and the Ducks. I think it's an opportunity for him to potentially get some of that value back. Anyone that was thinking of signing him like 5 times 7, 6 times 7, even 7 times 7, that would have been ridiculous. His even strength defense is not the greatest. What you're going to get with him in the offensive zone. But hey, maybe a change of scenery, gets his defensive capability back on track a little bit. So was definitely a little surprised by it. But, when I took the time to look at the move, I think that was a good decision by Klingberg to go to the Ducks. Now, getting to a little bit of fan surveys from JFresh here. So let's start with the, if I can find this here, the left wings. So that came out on Thursday. And number one, Kirill Kaprizov, Johnny Gaudreau, Artemi Panarin, Alex Ovechkin, Brad Marchand, Jonathan Huberdeau. Jake Guentzel came in at number 12. And honestly, I don't have that much of a problem with it. In my humble opinion, he's a top 5 pure goal scorer in this league. Scored 40 for the second time. He's the only other He's the only player outside of Crosby and Malkin in this era to score to have multiple seasons of 40 plus goals. That just goes to show what a special talent he is. But, you look at some of the players ahead of him, and I'll list off all of them here. I already listed off some of them. Kirill Kaprizov, it's fine. He's an electric talent. Johnny Gaudreau, it's fine. Artemi Panarin, yep. Alex Ovechkin, greatest goal scorer of all time. Brad Marchand, I think that's fine too. Jonathan Huberdeau, okay. Matthew Tkachuk, yep, that's very arguable. Alex DeBrincat, I think that you can go either way. I would take Jake Guentzel over Alex DeBrincat, in my opinion. Philip Forsberg, okay. Kyle Connor is very good. Jason Robertson's awesome. I would probably put Guentzel over Robertson and DeBrincat, maybe Forsberg. Otherwise, I think the players above him, they either deserve to be or, they have very good cases to be above him. I would probably not put him higher than number 9 in terms of the best left wingers in the league, especially just because, some of those players that I mentioned, they're not just great goal scorers. They're great overall, like, playmakers too. And I'm not saying that Guentzel is a bad playmaker by any means. He's not. He's freaking electric when he has the puck on his stick. But, look what someone like Kaprizov can do with the puck on his stick. Look what someone like, Johnny Gaudreau could do with the puck on his stick. Panarin is so good, even though he wasn't that great against the Penguins in the playoffs. Marchand, Huberdeau is coming off a 100-point season. Tkachuk, 100-point season. Again, Kyle Connor, I would probably put above him too, just because he's a great goal scorer and he can also do electric things with the puck. But, Robertson, I think he's going to be a top 10 winger, left winger in the league really soon. But, I don't think at this point, he is that. And I would take Guentzel over him. And, Philip Forsberg, coming off a great year, very deserving contract extension as well. But, when you stack up Guentzel and Forsberg, when you look at the numbers, I would have to take Jake with that. So, I'm mostly fine with him coming in at number 12. I think the fans did a mostly pretty good job with this one, in my opinion. I'm looking to see if there's any other Penguin players, even in the top 64 here. No, that just goes to show that, outside of Jake Guentzel, the left winger depth is not that deep. Otherwise, Zucker came in at 68th. I think that's a fine spot for him. When fully healthy, he's a better than that number. It would have been nice if it was number 69, but something for another time. But I think, again, when healthy, he's probably higher than that. But, that's just been the biggest thing for him, is just not being able to stay healthy. Danton Heinen came in at 87. That's fine. Brockman again at 91. I would have put McGinn down a little bit more. But that's basically it when it comes to the top 100 left wingers. That was in JFresh's survey results. Again, Guentzel, very deserving for being in the top 15. I would have him as a pure left winger when you count in defense, 5-on-5, even strength offense, goal scoring, all that stuff. To me, he's easily in the top 10. I'm not going to say he's in the top 7. I think a lot of those players that I named are better than him, and that's no slight to him. I have all the respect in the world for Jake. But, when you look at some of those other players and what they've accomplished, it's hard to put him super higher up on that list. But want to give my thoughts on that. Coming up in the next segment, I'm going to get into the right wingers list and look to see where the Penguins where some of the Penguins players ranked with that one. But before I get to that, if you haven't tried the Built Bar Puffs yet, you are depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. And guess what? There's a new flavor. You're ready for this? It's delicious, indulgent cookie dough covered in chocolate. That's right. Built has done it again. Let me introduce you to your favorite new flavor, cookie dough chunk puffs. They have a light and chewy texture. They have real cookie dough chunks. And of course, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. You have all the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassle of making it. Plus, it is healthy for you. Cookie dough chunk puffs are the only 160 calories, and they have a whopping 15 grams of protein in them. You can run to Built.com right now to snag a box for you and the family. It will be the perfect treat. Or you can find a really good hiding place and just hoard them for yourself. You're going to absolutely love this new puff. Whether you need a snack for your workout, late night treat, or you need to grab a quick bite to eat, Built is the perfect protein bar, and they taste better than a candy bar. You can go to Built.com, use promo code LOCK15, and get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off your order at built.com. All right, I'm back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. You can also follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. So let's get to, I don't know what the heck that was. The top right wingers from JFresh's fan survey where some of the Penguins stacked up. So Bryan Rust was not in the top 15. I'll list them off here. Nikita Kucherov, Mitch Marner, Mikko Rantanen, David Pastrnak, Patrick Kane, Steven Stamkos, Mark Stone, Jordan Kyrou, Kevin Fiala, William Nylander, Tarasenko, Nikolai Ehlers, Jesper Bratt, Clayton Keller, Joe Pavelski. So Bryan Rust came in at number 26. I'll list off the rest of those names. Zuccarello at 16, Pavel Buchnevich, Drake Batherson, Brock Besser, Blake Wheeler, Lucas Raymond, Tom Wilson, Troy Terry, Alex Tuch, Teuvo Teravainen, and Bryan Rust. When you look at a lot of these players, I think this is certainly a fine place for Rust. I mean, who are you really going to move him above here? I mean, maybe you could make an argument for Zuccarello, but he also just had one heck of a year. So I guess probably not when you look at what he did this year. I'm sure people are going to scream to me, oh, you take off Tom Wilson, doesn't really do anything. I'm not Tom Wilson's biggest fan. I know any Penguin fan will say that too, but he is a very good power forward, and he has actually been really good these last couple of years. He's really developed his game. There was a time for a while that it looked like he was just going to be, a typical plug. Not anymore. He scores a lot of goals, puts up a lot of points. He is a very good right winger in this league, especially when he's not being an idiot on the ice. Alex Tuch, maybe I put Bryan Rust above him. Teravainen, I think I would probably put Rust above him. Lucas Raymond, he's still young enough where, I could see it even because he's had good production. Blake Wheeler, I think at this point, he's probably on the downside of his career. I think I would put Rust above him, to be honest with you. Besser, and I think that's fine. Drake Batherson, he's pretty good. Pavel Buchnevich, that's fine. So honestly, I think top 20 to top 25 is fine. I mean, that just goes to show that, he is a first-line winger in the league. And, he was absolutely electric again this year for the Penguins. Just another 20 goal season, 58 points in 60 games. The year before that, 42 points in 56 games. This is the third straight season that he has scored over 20, and the second out of the last 3 seasons that he's almost had 60 points in a season. Also, in the second out of the last 3 seasons that he's been at a point per game, which is very hard to do. That's for sure. I don't think he gets enough credit for being one of the best right wingers in the league. Sure, he gets hurt. Yeah. I mean, he usually has his typical, 2.5 week injury, something like that. But, he was really good again this season. You pull up the numbers here, and I've discussed them in the season review, but, the underlying is very kind to him. When he was on the ice, the Penguins had about 51% of the shot attempts, 53% of the actual goals for, 53% of the scoring chances, 52% of the high danger chances. He was awesome with Crosby in the playoffs along with Guentzel. I mean, the Rangers had no chance to stop that line, basically. It was just crazy to see how they dominated any line the Rangers threw at them. Boom. And, Rust, he was big game Bryan. He even had a goal in game 6, Mr. Elimination. They went up 2-0 with that goal. I know they weren't able to win that game, but had they probably have gotten better goaltending, I think he would have lived up to his nickname as Mr. Elimination. So I'm totally fine with Russ ranking there. Would I move him up a couple spots? Yeah, but I'm not super, mad about it. Coming up after that, Rickard Rakell at number 37 behind Victor Arvidsson, Travis Konechny, Jacob Voracek, Anthony Mantha. I think that's fine too. Rakell, he stacks up to all those players that I just mentioned pretty well. After Russ, you have Bjorkstrand, David Perron, Connor Garland, TJ Oshie, Cam Atkinson, Tyler Toffoli. Rakell is right up there with all those guys. In my humble opinion, if Rakell has a really good year this year, he's going to get into the top 30. I think when Jack runs this list, runs this fan survey again next year, that's the big thing, and I know I took some heat when I was discussing the Rakell contract because I wasn't that big of a fan of it. I mean, I have to give my objective opinion about it because it's a long term, it's a big ticket. But if you can get consistent 25, 30 goal production out of him, at least for the next few years in Sid's window, I'm not really going to care what the contract looks like a few years after that because, this is mainly the Penguins window. I'm just concerned with him. Is he just going to be a 15 to 18 goal guy and he's not going to hit 20? Or is he going to hit consistent, numbers like Bryan Rust just did? Last few seasons were 3 straight seasons of 24 to 27 goals, where he's almost hitting 30 each of those last 3. So, if he does have those kind of numbers and he puts up, 58, 60 points, maybe even more than 60 points, I'm not going to really bat an eye. I'll gladly eat the crow with that. So I'm fine with where Rakell landed with that. And then Kasperi Kapanen landed at number 57. He's in the same category as Josh Bailey, Josh Anderson, JT Compher, Kyle Palmieri, Dennis Gurianov. Funny enough, Evan Rodrigues ranked at number 50, right there with all those players. I think, Rodrigues is ranked with some pretty good company. I think for Kapanen, I would personally slide him down a little bit just because he was really bad this year. But if he's a bit better next year, maybe he'll justify that ranking. So, I'm pretty, I was a bit upset with where the fans ranked Chris Letang when JFresh ran that survey and posted the results on his Twitter account. But, with the left and right wingers, definitely pretty happy about this. I think all these players are, at least from a Penguins perspective, they're right, I think, where they need to be. And I'm curious to see when Jack is going to do the centers. I don't think he has done the centers yet. Yeah, so he actually just posted it on his Twitter account on Friday morning. He said he's hoping to get 3,000 votes. His account is at JFresh Hockey. If you're not following him on Twitter, I will post the results of where Sidney Crosby ended up getting Malkin land. Once he posts them, I'm sure they'll be up by Monday or something like that. So that wraps up the second segment, looking at where a few of the Penguins wingers ranked up against some of the best, and I gave my thoughts on those. Again, mostly pretty positive with them. Now, coming up in the next segment, we're going to get into a little bit of talk about Evan Rodrigues and if the Penguins could circle back to him at some point during the offseason. So that's all coming up right after this commercial break. All right, I'm back here in this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. You can also follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. So, there were some people that, I guess were a little upset that the Penguins, did not sign Rodrigues the other day, even though they brought back Heinen in a beautiful cap hit. I mean, again, I almost feel bad for Danton because he should not be making that money. I mean, he should be making double that, triple that. Probably he should be probably making like 2.5 to 3 million this year, at least in my opinion. I'm glad the Penguins didn't go to arbitration for him. They made the right move for that. But when you look at it in the mirror, it's like, wow, 1 million for him after what he did. I would have, thinking about it right now, I wish they traded places with Kapanen. You give Kapanen Heinen's contract, and you give, Heinen Kapanen's contract. It's like, okay, no, I would have honestly preferred that, especially because, there's a better chance Heinen continues his production over, Kapanen really bouncing back in a way, in my opinion. But, this still leaves Rodrigues as one of the Penguins' lone unrestricted free agents that has not signed yet. I think he's still looking for a multi-year deal. If I had to guess, 3 years, 3 million, something like that. 3 million per. I should clarify. So maybe 3 years, 9 million total. Maybe 3 years, 10 million, something like that. I think teams are definitely interested in him, but I think they're also just hesitant to really pay that kind of player right now. Maybe Rodrigues, he's waiting for the Penguins to circle back. a little bit if they can, open up some more cap space. Um, I honestly, the Penguins, they're not going to offer a ton of money because, I mean, they can't. That's just look at their salary cap situation here, people. I mean, the only reason they got Heine back is because he wanted to play here. He had plenty of opportunities to apparently go get more money. I believe the Winnipeg Jets were in on him. I saw a report out there on social media about that. So he wanted to come back and chase a Stanley Cup with Pittsburgh, and maybe Rodrigues feels the same, but maybe he hasn't gotten that same kind of offer yet. But last season, again, tale of 2 years with him. Amazing in the first half, not good in the second half. Started to light it up in the playoffs again, but he still, when he was on ice, the Penguins still had 57% of the shot attempts for, 53% of the actual goals, 57% of the expected goals, 57% of the scoring chances, 56% of the high danger chances. Some of the best underlying numbers on the team. He was that freaking good. I would love to bring him back. I absolutely love what he brings to this team. His skating is top notch. He has a wonderful, wonderful shot. Just disguises it really well. Even when he has the one timer from the circle on his strong side, it's a sight to behold. Again, I go back to the goal that he had against the Blues. That was when I think it was a 3-1 comeback. That game was on TNT back in January, February. And he just unleashed that bomb to give the Penguins the lead. And it was just, he was playing like one of the best players in the league at that point. Again, I wouldn't break the bank for him. I would be willing to do a little bit of term, 2-3 years. I don't think I would do 4 years for him. I think that's a little much. But 3 years, $3 million, maybe 3.2 per year. I guess maybe something like Kapanen's contract will be nice for Rodrigues. But I think at this point, it's probably a little unlikely that he's going to come back. But never say never. I think we all thought the same about Dean Heinen that he was not going to come back, and then all of a sudden the Penguins, they did end up bringing him back on obviously a discount, but they were able to make the money work and all that. And if they do bring Rodrigues back, that instantly makes the depth even better. Overall, again, I don't think this team is done. I think there's still another domino or two to fall here. I think at least one defenseman is going out the door, if not two. To get but one or two more defensemen, I should say. They've already moved out Marino and Matheson. But I do think one or two more D are going to be shipped out here before the start of training camp, which is set for September 22nd. For those that are not on social media, the Penguins announced it. September 22nd is the first practice, and I'm sure it's going to be open to the public. So put that on your calendars if you want to go up to Cranberry, see the team practice with training camp. You're more than welcome to do that. If I lived in Pittsburgh, I'd hopefully be there every day to give you all the best coverage for that. But again, they would have to, if they do sign Rodrigues, they would especially have to move at least, at least one, definitely two contracts out in that case. But again, even if they don't, I still think there's another move or two to come here so that they can get another forward to play in the top 6 or top 9, preferably the top 6 to play with Evgeny Malkin. But again, love to bring Rodrigues back. That's the contract that I was discussing. You had, 3 times 3, 3 times 3.1, something like that. If you can make that work with the cap, if you can find someone to trade, something like that, I say do it. And I know people are going to come after me saying, well, you're bringing back a lot of the same team from last year. And it's like, yeah, I kind of am in a way. Just because that team was really good and they just got screwed by goaltending. That sometimes crap like that happens. I know I can't cuss on this podcast. This is family friendly. But crap happens. People say the other word, but that's just that's the nature of the wonderful sport that you all tune into. But that'll do it for this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. Let me know what you all thought about my stance on Rodrigues. Would you bring him back for that kind of contract? Would you bring him back at all? Let me know in the YouTube comments. You can also message me on Twitter and something like that, or you can find I guess any one of my social media platforms, or don't find my Facebook. That's just like weird. And I don't mind if people find me on Instagram or something like that. I don't even use my Facebook. But you can find me through there. You can just give me your thoughts on that. Let me know. Do you think the the fans got it right in terms of the best left wingers and right wingers in the league? Do you think Guentzel right plays? What about Ryan Rust, Rickard, Rakell, all that stuff? So again, thank you all so much for listening. Thank you all for making July another amazing month for this podcast. And I'll be back with another episode for you all on Monday as we start really digging into the dog days of summer as August is just around the corner. So again, thank you all so much for listening, and I'll talk to you all on Monday.